You see that sign behind me? It's pretty effective, isn't it? You can see the bent shape, the walking stick, and even though it doesn't move, it still gives off a feeling of slow decline. This sign should act as a warning, not perhaps that there are old people in the area, but what lies in store for men like you and me if we decide to follow accepted wisdom about getting older. So if you want to avoid looking like this sign when you're older, stick around for this one. Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Mengevity. I'm Simon Price, and this is a channel where middle-aged men can learn to look and feel a bit better about themselves with actionable health and fitness advice with some good skincare tips thrown in for good measure. Okay, so let's discuss the people in that sign that I was talking about at the very beginning of this video and why I don't believe that it's a necessary outcome for you or me if we decide to take our training and our longevity approach just a little bit more seriously than accepted wisdom. Now, what that sign always gave off, and does still to this day, is a sense of real decrepit old age. You can tell in the figures there that they're bent over, and it's quite obvious that, like sarcopenia, that loss of muscle that everyone starts to dread, has set in. You can see the slowness and the shuffling feet, and there's that fragility about it as well. And it kind of scares me a little bit because I'm like, I don't really want that to happen. I don't think anybody really wants that to happen, but I think it's quite obvious now, in the day and age in which we live, that we know that there are ways to overcome and combat that necessary outcome. And that's what this video is really about today. I want to talk about the people who've inspired me as I was growing up, namely my grandparents and my parents, and the way that they have, the way they approach their older years as they were getting on. I'll start with my mum's parents, my maternal grandparents. Now, they came from the northeast of England, and they would have come up from a working class background and a coal mining background in a little town called Northumbria. But so as far back as I can remember, they always were the ones that seemed like the older set of grandparents, because my paternal grandparents, my father's parents, who were the same age, didn't give off the same air of old age as my maternal ones. And what I mean by that is that my mother's parents would talk about getting older. They talk about the ailments, they talk about the stiffness, I suppose, and the can't be long now kind of like discussions they'd have about old age. The other thing about them as well is that they didn't really take part in any sports. I think maybe when they were younger, they may have done that in their 20s, but by the time I was born and I was putting down memories as a little kid, they would have been in their late 50s and early 60s. But it was just the way that they dressed and the way that they composed themselves, even though they were pin sharp and they were very polite and upright people, because of course they didn't drive and they walked everywhere. They still acted and looked older. Their fashions never really changed in the 25, 30 years that I knew of them. And as I say, in comparative terms, when I think about both sets of those grandparents, it was my mum's side of the family that always exuded a sense of old age more efficiently than my dad's side of the family. Now, my dad's side of the family comes from working class coal mining stock as well, but this time down in South Wales. His father was down in my stake in South Wales, and then went to, in the Second World War, was in the RAF, and then through the RAF, they decided to pay for him to go to university to study engineering. He was the first in his family to do so. So he managed to elevate his status somewhat to a comfortable middle class level. Now, my grandmother was from South Africa, and she was a very sporty, able individual who played a lot of sports when she was younger, when she was out in South Africa as well. A lot of South Africans do because they've got a wonderful climate to do so. Now, when I think back about that set of grandparents, my paternal grandparents, they were always, again, very, very trim, dressed very, very well, but they still were very active people. I think they both played golf and played tennis, and they went swimming quite a lot as well, something that my maternal grandparents just never did. And so my dad's parents never spoke about getting old, never spoke or complained about any aches and pains or anything like that whatsoever. They just got on with it. I never once remembered them talking about it's sort of like creeping old age or anything like that at all, in comparison to the other set who did talk about it quite regularly. My paternal grandparents were very smartly dressed as well, and they held themselves well. And they were very, very, very trim people who never drank or ate excessively either. What both sets of grandparents had as an advantage, I think, is because they were the Second World War generation. And so they weren't living through the junk food revolution at all. They also would have come through rations. So they didn't have the benefit of all these surplus calories that this generation that we belong to have at their disposal. So they had that in good stead. But what I think I'm trying to say here is that I think the battle about how you get older is very largely mental as well as physical. My younger looking and younger sort of sensing grandparents just didn't talk about it. They didn't think about it, in other words. Whereas the ones that did, they're the ones that showed the signs of age, even when they were in their late 50s and early 60s. And it didn't go amiss. I didn't not pick up on those social clues when I was younger either. And I always felt like I wanted to maintain a decent level, or perhaps a slightly above level of activeness and fitness, in order to stave off the kind of inevitable cliche of becoming that hunched over sarcopenic old person. Now, when I think back about my mum and dad and where I was brought up, we were very fortunate because we were brought up in a very mountainous, wild part of North Wales, and we lived up the literal side of a mountain. For a couple of years, my mum didn't drive, so she would push us around, 3 children, and walk us up and down hills. And so she was physically very fit and robust from an early age. And my dad, who was an active rugby player, 6'4", 17 stone, a very fit, strong man, very sporty, and played rugby, as I say, competitively for about 25, 28 years of his life. And so, again, with parents that didn't overeat, and didn't overdrink, and didn't smoke, they laid down a very good template for me to follow in their footsteps. And so I think, again, with my mum, who's still with us, and she's in her mid-70s, again, when I've discussed about getting older with her, she says that she simply doesn't think about it either. Now, my grandmothers both outlived their respective husbands. My mum's mother died when she was 98 of quite advanced... In fact, she died of cancer, but it was a very, very slow cancer. And she was quite advanced dementia as well, and pleasantly confused. But my other grandmother, my paternal grandmother, is still alive. She's 102 years old. Can you believe that? 102 years old and in a home. And I'm not lying when I say that she only started to show real signs of old age and frailty when she was in her late 90s as well. My father, unfortunately, contracted motor neurons disease a few years ago, and he passed away because of that. But when he was still alive and in a wheelchair, my then grandmother in her early 90s was still playing ping pong ball with us, bending over to pick the ball up and beating us on the serve as well, I'll hasten to add. So the fact that she moved her entire life, that she ate well, kept her weight down, and just didn't think about her age, I think stood her in good stead for most of her life. So all of this is to say that the approach that I'm going to take with this channel, the way that I'm going to conduct myself for the rest of my life, and the way that I'm going to train and eat, is following basically the old school rule of thumb. I'm going to eat sensible portions of food. I'm going to limit the kind of sugary treats and junk food that are going into my body. I'm going to keep exercising, but more importantly, I am not going to really stop and think about it. Now, of course, I'm making videos about it, and you might think, well, you're still going on about it because you're making videos about it, but I'm just going to start living by a mantra of just don't think about it. Hashtag. That's basically what I'm going to start saying from here on in. But that's the whole point. The people that inspire me, who are in their 70s and 80s, are people like my mum and one of my best friends, Dicko. Both of them don't think about their age. My mum especially, even though now she's obviously in her mid-70s and says herself that she could stand to lose a few more pounds, she's mentally as sharp as a tack as she's ever been, really, and a very vibrant person, full of life, and great company to be around. And likewise, my friend Dicko is an inspiration to me too. The man is still working. He is a very fit and active individual. He still works out, and he still skateboards aged 71, which is just absolutely crackers, and again, something that I really aspire to be. But the thing about him and the other people that I know who are like him is that they never stop working out. They've got a strong and large amount of muscle. They're moving about all the time, so they're flexible too, and so they don't come across as being brittle because they do not have sarcopenia. They haven't allowed that to set in. So I know for a fact, with living examples that I hang around with, that sarcopenia and ending up like those people in that sign is not a foregone conclusion at all. It is something that you can do something about. And of course, we now live, like I say, in this modern era where we have better supplements and better proteins and different things like that, and better science and understanding of the causes that help to encourage and prolong our likelihood of living a longer and healthier life, and getting out of that health zone that I called Sniper's Alley in a couple of videos ago. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Now, in future videos, I'm going to start showing you the little things that I'm doing and the long-term things that I'm going to be doing as well, in order to keep myself fit, strong and supple for the rest of my life. There are things that I am naturally good at, and there are things that I'm absolutely rubbish at, which I need to get better. And I'm going to highlight every single thing that I'm doing, warts and all, so you can see for yourself and then maybe judge my progress. And if it inspires you to do the same thing, then all the better. Thank you very much indeed for watching this video. I know I've been talking to the camera quite a lot on these things, and so I do hope you find it interesting. If you got to the end here, thank you for your precious time. If you like what I'm doing here, maybe consider joining the club and subscribing, or giving the video a thumbs up on the way out. It really does help with the algorithm and help to grow my channel. Until next time, thank you very much indeed. Again, take care of yourself, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.